Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We're getting into all the most recent Arsenal news. So, yeah, make sure you guys are getting in the chat and letting me know what you guys think. Yeah, it's like I started right away and I usually don't. And I'm on time. So, give me some credit. I'm right on time today. On today's show, first of all, I'm really glad that Vinai is leaving the club. Not because I think he's bad at his job, but because I needed something to talk about. There's barely anything to talk about. I cannot wait for these next 2 days to go by and for Arsenal to play a game so we have more to talk about, right? But on today's show, we're going to be talking about Saka's injury concern. It has been revealed that he is still suffering from that Achilles injury that he had last season. Declan Rice has been shortlisted for the best FIFA men's player of 2023. And Caitlin Ford and Amanda Ilstat have also been shortlisted for the FIFA's Women's Player of 2023. Kai Havertz has been voted the worst signing in a poll done by The Athletic. Vinai, like I said, is going to be leaving the club, which begs the question, who will replace him? Did he do a good job? How do we know he did a good job? Is he just moving on to greater, bigger and greater things? Who knows? And Arsenal women are set for a deadline day deal for Kyra Cooney-Cross, who is an Australian international. I'm still reeling from Arsenal women being out of the Women's Champions League. So, yeah, any news about better players, good players coming in is definitely something that I want to hear about. And so, yeah, get in the chat and let me know what you guys are thinking. Also, just some channel news. I have it here at the bottom as well. I've been kind of telling you guys that I'm restructuring memberships because I don't like the way that they're set up now. So there will be one membership tier that's going to be available to you guys on Patreon. So all of the membership content is going to be on there. Audio will also be available on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple on Monday. Monday's podcast will feature That's Watson, Watson Hirschfield. If you don't follow him on Instagram, he's hilarious. He does comedy sketch. He does so many interesting things, but he's also an Arsenal fan. So he's going to join me on Monday's podcast. That will be pre-recorded, but it's going to be fun. Trust me. And also the first watch along, you guys have been asking me for watch alongs for years now. I'm not a great watcher, and maybe that makes for good content. I do not know. But the next watch along will be for Arsenal versus PSV. And moving forward, watch alongs will be for our cup games, whether it's in Europe or domestic, as well as top six clashes. So yes, you're going to get Tottenham, you're going to get Man City, you're going to get all those things. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. You guys are liking this video, help the channel grow. And let's see what you guys are saying. A cow says Edu Gaspar should leave. Always the so-called sporting director giving away players for free and giving termination fees as well. Hugo says, good job and good morning. Thank you so much. Boy says, what does Vinai even do? Honestly, I don't know. What is your job? But we know he was the CEO or is the CEO and will not be the CEO coming this summer. And CEO is a very important position in any business, I would imagine. But what a football, or club CEO does, I don't know. So let's see. Carl says, Vinai was the reason we sold bad, in my opinion. Expand on that, because I'm not sure how Vinai would be responsible for players being sold for nothing. That feels more like a Richard Garlick, Tim Lewis, and Edu job, but let me know what you guys are thinking. Hugo says, Jess, what about Rice being nominated for FIFA's Best Award? We will talk about that as well. Akal says, don't pass on inefficiency of Edu to Vinai. And so, yeah, honestly, Vinai, best of luck to you and whatever you're going to do in the future. And hopefully we will find out what you did and how we can improve upon it. I don't know. But just to start out the show, obviously there is an injury concern regarding Bukayo Saka. Arsenal star Bukayo Saka has a nagging injury after being rested for the England win. Arsenal he has reportedly been playing through a nagging injury since last season. It has been claimed. I know, like, we've heard about this Achilles injury before, and I cannot remember exactly what game he got it from, but I do remember somebody stepping on his Achilles, and then from there on, like, he's had that injury. The winger was a substitute for England's 3-1 win over Scotland on Tuesday, and the reason why his minutes were managed has emerged. Many might have expected Saka to start the clash given Gareth Southgate picked a relatively strong team. The 21-year-old has solidified his place in England's first team over the last year. And so, like, Saka, I think this is something that's always going to kind of be something that Arsenal fans really struggle with, is the trauma and PTSD of having young players that have sustained injuries when they're young. We play them a lot, and then they are crocked by, their mid to late 20s. And so for a while, Arsenal fans have been calling for Saka to be rested, to have some rotation, manage him correctly. And nothing of the sort has happened for an England standpoint or Arsenal. Both Gareth Southgate and Mikel Arteta seem very adamant about playing Bukayo. And I get why, because he's such a good player. He's super reliable. He can kind of play at a very high level almost every single game. And he's just a very, very, very good player. But he's only 22, just turning 22 like a week ago. And so, you want Bukayo to have the longest career he possibly can at the highest level. And him playing every single game, 90 minutes, regardless of what kind of game it is not good for him, I think, especially if he's playing with an injury. And I suspect quite a few players are managing injuries because, let's be real, like, I get that they're being paid millions of dollars. And so it's like, this is their job. But the amount of football that these players are taking on in such short periods of time without adequate rest, I would imagine so many players are managing injuries and, are struggling to kind of like get that intensity and that level up season in, season out through international tournaments and these extra nation league games and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, it's something that many players have spoken about. I know that, like, Rafael Varane talked about it not too long ago, that the amount of football that they're playing is kind of crazy. And he's not the only one that has spoken about it. But beyond just the insane like load that they're taking on in terms of like the games that they're playing, it's just kind of like Arsenal need to make sure that we're doing what we can do in order to manage our players the best that we can. And, this is the thing about, you have a player in your team like Reece Nelson, who isn't Bukayo Saka levels, but why would we give him a new contract on a certain level of money for a certain amount of years if we didn't feel confident that he could step in for Bukayo Saka, like in games like, I don't know, Sheffield at home, Luton at home, games where we should be dominant and all of that. And then we really should be saving Saka, not, where he only plays these games, but we want to make sure he's at maximum fitness for Manchester City, for our games in the Champions League and things like that. Arteta really needs to get a better handle on Saka's management in terms of his fitness. It's one thing that we thought that he was just playing all these minutes because, he's just good. But now with the injury concern added in there, it's like, you really need to get this together, because if for some reason Saka sustained a long-term injury or was unable to play at a certain level because we did not do things right early on, people are not going to be happy with Mikel Arteta. And that is, it's concerning. It is concerning. I would imagine that the physios and all that have more information on how bad it is, how it can be managed. But could we not just sit him out for one game? And if we're basically saying that we don't think we can win any game without Bukayo Saka being involved, then we actually have bigger problems than we thought we did. Nico says all these Arsenal fans saying he is okay are are the same ones that are going to cry when he tears his Achilles. O'Malley says, I disagree. Saka has gotten better every year. Arteta is doing it right. They have doctors who monitor it. Boy says last time Saka was rested for a game, he ended up being out of form for the next month. And there is that, the conversation around like periodization, I think it's called, where some players, in order to play at their peak fitness, have to continue to play. Some players can take time off and then still come back good. Other players need to continue to play to maintain fitness. But, are we seeing the best Saka that we possibly could be seeing at this point? I don't know. If he is managing this injury, it would make sense why, although he's still playing at a very good level, why we're not seeing the best Bukayo Saka. So I understand periodization. I understand some players have to continue to play to maintain fitness, while others can have a different plan and maintain their fitness with less minutes played. But he has an Achilles injury. That scares me quite a bit. Hugo says, I think it's time to rest him this weekend and give Trossard, Vieira, or Nelson a start. Akau says Saka needs some rest. Play Trossard this week instead. Joe says, why did Southgate play him at all? They were ahead when he came on, and all we had to worry about was Maguire scoring again for Scotland. He's just the type of player that managers are desperate to use when they feel, I think, like the game is under some sort of threat. Mikel does it as well. Like if we're not playing as good as we possibly can and Saka's not playing, we saw it in like cup games and stuff like that. Saka was right up on the sideline ready to go in. And we don't have an analog for Bukayo Saka. We don't have anybody in the team that can do anything similar to what he's doing. Similar to England, they don't have anybody similar to him. Him and Foden are completely different players. And so, if you want something a little bit different, you kind of have to use Saka. But like, it's just getting to the point now where, I think there was a little period of time where, in between, he got like a little bit of a rest in between playing for Arsenal and then playing for England. I will look it up and I'll find it. But like, he looked so fresh for England where he had not looked fresh for us. And I just wonder if like even just a game, if that would do him any sort of good. Just one game. I'm not saying rest him because he can't, because we have to play, we play in the Champions League. Like, so I'm not saying for weeks on weeks on weeks. I'm just saying 1 week, and it's unfortunate because we never play at our best against Everton. So I know that Arteta will not risk it, but it would be nice to be able to play against relegation level teams and Saka not have to play every single minute. Because again, why did we give Reece Nelson that contract? He's on a similar contract to Eddie Nketiah, which, for squad players to be on £100,000 per week or £90,000 per week, you have to use them to get that money back, or to feel like it was a good investment. And Reece Nelson does really well when he comes off of the bench. Maybe you can give him like a couple more minutes, just so Saka doesn't have to play every minute, and it's not exactly the same. Like I know that Saka is left-footed and Reece Nelson is right-footed and Trossard is right-footed. So, you're not going to get that same, inverted quality that you get from Saka. But we should be flexible enough and good enough to play with different players across that front line and still be able to beat the likes of Everton. If we can't do that, we need to stop talking about being title challengers, because that is weird. Nico says it's funny how everyone was saying Saka was burnt out at the back end of last season, and now they're saying he's fine, just play him. BG says the thing is this Brutta doesn't get rest at all, and it's not about continuity. Saka must play against Everton, being a tough away game, but right now he should be rested. His minutes have been mismanaged. Boy says the problem with replacing Saka for even a game is that we don't have another genuine left-footed right winger. There are very few left-footers for sure on our books. They just aren't wingers. So you're talking about, Vieira, maybe Kai Havertz, but I still kind of maintain the feeling that like Arsenal should be able to win games without certain players in the team. And right now we look, we're not the team that we're saying that we are. We're not the club that we're saying that we are if we can't survive a game without Saka. Even if he's left-footed and, we have right-footers on that side, it shouldn't just be like, okay, we can't win. I think it's a cop out, but that's clear. I feel like that's how Arteta feels. And that's kind of scary to be so reliant on a player, especially when they're managing some sort of injury. Alistair Ben says Salah plays every game, every minute. That's what top players do. They do, but that was an okay thing to say before he had this Achilles injury that he's been trying to manage since last season. And we've seen that since that injury, his levels have dropped a little bit. Now Saka still will do brilliant things, like the goal that he scored against Nottingham Forest. That was his level is so high that, like, even managing this injury and probably not at his best, it's better than what some people could even dream of. So I'm not saying Saka's even been poor. I think people that have said Saka has been poor, that's such an overreaction. He's just not been at his best. But, it's like there's a clear difference between Saka when he's like at his best and when he's not. And with this injury, he has not been at his best. And I'm just like, yes, Salah plays every single game, but would they still be playing him still, like, through this injury? I don't know. I am worried about it. I'm worried about it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Maybe I shouldn't be because I'm not a doctor, and so I don't claim to know everything about football, science and medicine and all this kind of stuff, sports science. Like, I don't know anything about that. Like, I'm not, but as a fan, Saka being one of our best players, managing an injury like an Achilles injury and, feeling like he's never going to get a rest does give me a little bit of like, oh my gosh, like, especially because of the past, because we've had young players in the past and we've kind of overplayed them, been overly reliant upon them, and their careers were just kind of like collapsed in their mid to late 20s. And we don't want that to happen to Saka. So, I want to believe that Arsenal are doing the best possible, they have the best possible plan for him. They understand how to manage it. They know better than me what Saka needs in order to play at his best. But that doesn't mean in the back of my mind, I'm not going to be worried about it because he's one of our best players. O'Malley says Messi used to play every single game in his early 20s. Messi's not a good example, I think, of anything because Messi is the best player that we've ever seen, like, in our lifetime. He's a freak of nature. He's a unicorn, and he's a very specific, you know, example of a player. Ultimately, like, there's exceptions to every single rule. Maybe Saka becomes the exception, but playing players while they're injured at a very young age and being heavily reliant upon them and not giving them any rest, the exception to the rule maybe would be Messi, but the people that fall outside of that tend to not have careers beyond their late 20s, mid to late 20s. So I don't know where Messi comes in, but he, Arsenal could just know what they're doing, and that's fine too. Boy says can't use Messi as an example. He has such quick feet that when players try to kick him, they just miss. And that's the other part about it, is like Saka is not protected by the league. Messi is somebody that you can't really kick or anything because you're gonna be off. Saka gets kicked more than anybody, so he's not really protected by the referees, so we need to make sure we're doing the best things. Danny says he's probably been played with this injury because we don't have suitable cover for him. That's really poor. And the thing about suitable cover for me is that, like, in most teams besides Manchester City, you don't have suitable cover for every single position. The idea that you're going to have two world-class players in every single position is just a fallacy. But Arsenal have, Trossard, they have Reece Nelson, and those two players are at a certain level where if you mix them in with the starting 11, you're not going, like, we should still, like, you're not going to play at your tip-top best. You're not, because Saka gives you something completely different. but you should feel confident enough to win a game, especially against certain types of opposition. I think Arsenal tend to be a little bit too reliant on certain players. And then if they're out of the team, we just cannot cope. And that's why it is kind of good for Arteta to play other players, to make sure that, it may not look the same or feel the same. Like we know that when we saw Ben White plus Saliba, it didn't feel as comfy as Saliba and Gabriel. We know that having Tomiyasu on that side instead of Zinchenko didn't feel as comfy as having Zinchenko there, but having those players play with each other and play in different formations and still being able to get results is good for us. It really, really is. Having Jorginho play some minutes with different players, like it just helps, be able to win games even when you're not with your strongest 11. Arsenal need to get there, I think, with that front three. Other players need to be able to be in that front three and Arsenal win games. And that includes Trossard and Reece Nelson and Nketiah, who Nketiah is one of those that has gotten those minutes. We haven't been as good as we are with Gabriel Jesus, but we've been able to get results. That is so effing important for this team. But right now, we have no answer for Saka and Odegaard. Those are two players that I don't know what we're going to look like without them. I have no clue because we don't even try it, And maybe Arteta knows best and he knows that the team can't win without him. But we really should be able to. Tyrell says, big up, Jess, big up to you as well. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. So obviously we will see Saka play on the weekend. Like there's no way that he won't play Everton away. We just don't have a great record there and we want to put our best foot forward. Looking at our schedule, kind of like moving forward. Let me see. What is today, you guys? 14th. So, we have Everton at the weekend, and then we have our Champions League game, so he'll definitely play that game. And then we have Tottenham, he'll definitely play that game. Brentford away in the Carabao Cup is probably the next time that you'll see an opportunity to maybe rest him. Brentford away for Carabao Cup, game is a very tough and unfortunate draw for Arsenal. I mean, Brentford are one of the best performing teams in the league right now. Their underlying metrics say that they're one of the best teams in the league. And if they had Tony in their team, they'd probably be really, really up there. So that's a very, very, very tough draw for Arsenal. Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. I think that's probably the first clear chance that Arsenal could have to maybe rotate him. I just don't see it for any of the other games because they're just so important. So yeah, Juice says Reece can play right wing. He can. The dynamics are different because he's not going to be able to cut in on his left. But again, Arsenal should be flexible enough where just because your right winger is not left-footed, it should still work. But yeah, we'll see. Nico says, I'm pretty sure Nelson can do a job on the right against the lesser teams as he did when he came on against Nottingham Forest at home last season. And I think the thing about that game in particular, I was at that game, is just Arsenal were just playing well and we were in a vibe where it's nobody could beat us. And I think sometimes it's not so much about, oh my gosh, this player can't play with this player. It's about the team just deciding they want to win a game. Saka went off injured. Reece Nelson came on. Nothing really changed. Nobody was really worried about, oh, he's not left-footed. It's not going to the angle. No, we were just better than Nottingham Forest. We knew we were going to beat them down. We beat them 5-0. And sometimes I just think it's about mentality more than anything. So of course Reece Nelson can play on that side, but we'll see. We will see. Yo-Yo says only time will tell whether Arteta is ready to improve on his Achilles heel. We're going to end that section on that. Thank you, Yo-Yo, for that. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Declan Rice has been shortlisted for the best FIFA men's player in 2023. He's on a 12-man shortlist, and he has been nominated what a signing he has been so far. I think if Arsenal had been maybe playing a little bit better, like I'm very apprehensive about saying that Arsenal haven't been playing well, because I think that that's like an overreaction. I'm not quite feeling like we're playing poorly. I actually think we're playing good, just not our best. But, maybe had Nketiah score that goal that, Rice set up against Crystal Palace, maybe, if we hadn't choked against Fulham in those last couple of minutes of the game, we'd be speaking about Rice in a different, or the media would be speaking about Rice a little bit more. I think, it's always going to be an underrated signing, because a DM is never going to get the same type of headlines and attention as attacking players. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they are up Madison's ass like I've never seen. Also because he's Tottenham now. Like if Madison came to Arsenal, they wouldn't give a fuck, right? But they need somebody on Tottenham to ass kiss, because Kane's not there anymore. But they're talking about Madison every day, all day. Is this the best signing? Is this the best signing? It's hard to quantify like a defensive midfielder, because it's weird, because people will, oh, well, your DM, he's not scored enough goals. DMs don't usually score goals. So it's not really, Declan doesn't actually have to score a certain amount of goals. But I do think that he's been quietly very good for us. I think you can already see that his game is improving. He's learning a lot. And for people that were really concerned about Declan Rice on the ball, I hope those first 4 games have kind of like eased your nerves. I think the way Declan Rice looks on the ball is what's contributing to people thinking that he's limited on the ball. We're used to seeing somebody like Thomas Partey, who's a lot more elegant when he's on the ball. Everything that he does just looks like kind of like poetry and very fluid. Declan's a little bit more like he's a little bit more, I don't want to say stiff, but you guys know what I mean. It doesn't look as nice, but a lot of the things that he's doing are the same things that Thomas Partey would do. He's finding passes in between the lines. I like the weight of his passes are very good. They're hard and they have, some bite to them. His switches of play have been very good. And defensively, he does something that Thomas Partey does not do. And Thomas really was much better at intercepting and getting in positions to like kind of nick the ball off of you, where Declan Rice is a crunching tackle, keep you from coming back into this area type of guy. I mean, he was really, really like killing Bruno Fernandes. Like Bruno Fernandes, like all you have to do is tackle him a couple of times and he's out of the game, because he's just going to whine for the rest of the game. And he did a couple of those, and that kind of stopped him from coming back in that area. And so, I think Declan Rice is weirdly underrated for us. Nobody's really talking about him, but again, he's a DM, so people aren't really going to be talking about a DM the way that they would an attacking player. But the rest of the nominees are Julian Alvarez, Marcelo Brozovic, Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan, Erling Haaland, Rodri, Kvaratskhelia, if that's how it's pronounced, Mbappe, Lionel Messi, Victor Osimhen, Declan Rice, and Bernardo Silva. That is a very, very good list of players to be, rubbing shoulders with. Like, he's not going to win it, but just to be nominated is pretty special, I think, for a player that didn't even play in Champions League last season. I mean, every single one of these players except for him played in Champions League last season, I believe. So, for him to be in there, I think is pretty special. And I have no doubt in my mind that he'll be, a world-class or considered world-class soon. He's just that good. He can play in the 8, he can play in the 6 role. He's available. He learns fast. He's not afraid. He has all the things that, certain people like, the passion and all that kind of stuff. And he's fit in really well with us. So I'm really happy for him. So congratulations to him to be nominated for that award. Let's see what you guys are saying. Juice says, I've been arguing with Chelsea fans about Enzo. He hasn't done shit. Enzo's a great player. I just think that, like, I don't know. It's Enzo is a really, really good player, and I won't deny that I think he's a very good player. Just because he plays for Chelsea, I'm not gonna lie and say that I don't think that that is going to be a top player. But the way that they're trying to put him in certain categories with other players is kind of strange because he hasn't really done that. And I get that he was like the young player of the tournament at the World Cup, but from a club perspective, he hasn't really done anything. And so, um, and Declan Rice, for the World Cup, he was instrumental really for England, getting to, I think, the semifinals or quarterfinals. Which one did they get to? I know they went out to France. So, um, and he also, for his club, won a European trophy. Now, it's obviously not like the biggest trophy that you can win, but it's clear to see that Declan Rice is that guy. He's going to be, but you know, um, he has a long way to go. But if this is his baseline, his foundation for Arsenal, just imagine what he's going to be like after a year. He's great. Yo-Yo says Rice is fine on the ball. Let's not overdo it. He ain't no Xabi, Alonso, or not even Arteta. He doesn't have to be. He's been quality. Exactly. And like I would never say that he's like a Jorginho type or, Regista or anything like that. I just think that I think his play on the ball has actually been underrated. And I don't think it's overrating it to state it as it is that although it doesn't look as good as what Thomas Partey is doing, it's very effective. And it's not like you have some bum, in your midfield just hoofing it, which I think some people were acting like he could not pass the ball. So just coming to the balance medium there is that he's probably better on the ball than a lot of people thought that he was. But no, he's not like a Xabi Alonso or Jorginho or nothing like that. Definitely not saying that. Juice says Rice has already done more in an Arsenal shirt than Enzo has in a Chelsea shirt. Facts of fiction. Actually, I think Enzo probably needs a player like Rice next to him. And the problem that they have with Caicedo is that Caicedo is not really like a single pivot 6. He's actually more of an 8. So I think Caicedo is like a better version of Conor Gallagher, a much better version of Conor Gallagher. And so it's like you kind of maybe want a midfield of Enzo and Caicedo and somebody else. Maybe that's where Lavia comes in, or Enzo, Lavia, and Nkunku or something like that. But Enzo actually would benefit from having somebody like Declan Rice behind him. I'm so glad we got him and they didn't. I love it. So yeah, Samuel says, as Partey is being linked with Juve again, Rice might be one taking the DM place for the rest of the season. And keep seeing this link. It's not going away. I don't think it's made up. The fact that they haven't offered Thomas Partey a new deal, I think, is very telling. People were yelling at me all summer that no way we'd sell him. And because the window closed, that meant that they weren't looking to sell him. They were absolutely open to him going. It just would have taken a certain fee for him to go. And because the window trickled down and there wasn't a suitable replacement available to us, that actually made the decision a lot easier, I think, to keep him. But trust and believe Arsenal are open to selling Thomas Partey. If they weren't, they would get him on a new deal. He has 2 years left. In January will be 1.5 year. And so, you would need to renew him at this point. And it doesn't make sense to allow Thomas Partey to leave on a free. The last thing you want is to have somebody that's on like 250,000 pounds per week, not really playing that many minutes and being paid that amount. So they're definitely open to letting him go for a certain fee. Like, that is definitely what happened this summer. Even Fabrizio Romano said it. I don't know why people were acting so like, oh my gosh, like there's no way we would sell him. They were open to it. They just couldn't find a replacement and they didn't get the fee that they wanted. And if they don't, if they don't renew him, then they have to sell. But, to let him go in January, I'm not sure. I get that we have Jorginho and Rice, but we also, I don't know. It depends. Like, I'm a little apprehensive about now that I'm not sure what we could do in January, that I really want to see, let's wait till the summer to let Partey go. Because my hope was that if Thomas Partey were to go, we would have Rice and Jorginho, but we would have went out and got another midfielder. I was open to the Lavia idea. Idealistically, you'd want somebody more like Zubamendi, or maybe even just like a number 8, like just like a true center midfielder. But without the ability to replace him, I just feel like that would be leaving us a little bit short when we're already short in multiple positions. So, yeah, but Rice has been shortlisted for the best FIFA men's player for 2023. And he's in very esteemed company, which is really nice to see that he's highly rated by a lot of people. And so good for him. Caitlin Ford and Amanda Ilestat have also been nominated for the best FIFA women's player of 2023. So congratulations to them as well. Caitlin Ford was excellent for Arsenal last season in the time where Viviana Miedema and Beth Mead were not available, and her and Stina Blackstenius really carried the team during a very, very difficult time where they had so many injuries and so many absences. So congratulations to her. And obviously Amanda Ilestat played her football for PSG, so a lot of this is being taken into account for what she did for PSG as well as what she did in the World Cup, which was phenomenal for Sweden. She scored so many goals. So hopefully that form carries over to Arsenal. There's 217 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, just a little bit of channel news. If you guys see it rolling around on the bottom there, memberships are going to be moved to Patreon. I'm going to change the membership structure. I just want to have one level and that's it. Audio will also be available on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple on Monday for these shows and all other shows. Monday's podcast will feature That's Watson. Watson Hirschfield will be on the show. He's hilarious. If you don't follow him on Instagram, follow him. And then next watch along will be Arsenal versus PSV, since you guys have been begging me for those for a year. And I've been like, I don't know, you guys. I don't know. Kai Havertz, unsurprisingly, has been voted worst signing. That has come from The Athletic, who do their fair bit of engagement farming. But, the game is the game, right? And talking about Kai Havertz is pretty spot on for if you want to get some clicks going and some engagement on your post, talk about Kai Havertz and it'll come for sure. But, he's definitely on the list, and it's not surprising. Like, let's be real. The Premier League agent survey, according to a cross section of agents involved in some of the biggest transfer deals of the summer, the worst signing is Kai Havertz, which was the worst deal of the window. Kai Havertz was up there with 6 votes, and Moises Caicedo from Brighton to Chelsea had 5, which is very surprising to me. So agents, I think, have more knowledge on the ins and outs of the deal, how it came about, and the money involved, which I think is more. This is more interesting to me than hearing fans, because fans are just going to go with rivalry, and Kai Havertz would have been on the top of that list no matter who voted. But agents saying this is quite interesting. And then Mason Mount is 3rd, and then you have all these other ones down here who don't really matter. Kai Havertz is unsurprising. Like, it's really not like that surprising. And I can't say that I even feel like it's that wrong to say, because it just never really made sense. And it's a lot of money for a player that, has been largely a flop for the entire time he was at Chelsea. There's really nothing there beyond every single one of their attackers in that period failed. That's really the only caveat that you can put there to kind of be like, well, maybe it's a very strange signing for a lot of money. If you cut it in half and it was 30 million, then maybe it wouldn't look as bad. But 65 million, when there were other midfielders available that don't have the same baggage, reputation, or failure attached to their name, it's a strange signing to make. So it's not surprising. And quite frankly, I find that Arsenal fans that are surprised by it or upset by it just need to kind of let it go, because the signing doesn't really make sense. And it is expensive for a player that there's not a lot of redeeming qualities from it. He's not that young. He's not that inexperienced. He wasn't playing in a different league. So unless he just completely turns things around, then this will be the narrative that Arsenal made the worst signing of the transfer window. And every time that he whiffs the ball, every time that he makes a bad pass that ends up being a goal on the other end, it's just going to further confirm that theory. So I know people are like up in arms about it. I know Ben White was also named the worst signing of the window in a similar poll a couple of years ago, which I still find so strange because Ben White, what did he do to anybody? Like, it didn't make sense. But he played that one game, and then his reputation was torn down after the Brentford game of the start of the season. That it was done. Gary Neville did a lot of damage, and Arsenal fans did nothing to help him. They basically just let Gary Neville set him on fire, and we just stood there with buckets of water and said, you know what, actually, we're just going to let you burn. But with Kai Havertz, like it's even more difficult to like really back it, just because like it just doesn't make any sense. So the reality is that he just needs to perform, and it has to work, and that's up to the manager. But we didn't have to do it. So people that are complaining about Arsenal having a player on this list and feeling like it's just bias or anything like that, had anybody else like a Liverpool or anybody else, Man United, had bought Kai Havertz, we'd be saying that is the worst signing that you could have possibly made. Keep it 100. Keep it real. So we're just going to have to hold that. They're just going to have to hold that. Like, there's nothing you really can do unless he really starts to perform. There's nothing you could do. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I just feel like, yeah. So yeah, Juice says, Jess, where do you stand on Havertz? That he has to perform. And like, there's nothing really you can do unless he does. Like, the thing about it's like, there's just so many other players that you could have went out and got that could have played that position and had no baggage or failure attached to them, and didn't even have that price tag either, because he's very expensive. So I do think that like, what I want him to work, because I'm an Arsenal fan and I'm desperate for Arsenal to do well. And for like, I don't think Kai Havertz has to be like amazing for Arsenal to do well, but I do think the narrative around him has got to like kind of cease and quiet down. And so for that to happen, and the focus to just be on Arsenal and our football, is he has to start performing. And so I want it to work. I don't really understand the signing. I get what Arteta's trying to do with him, but I don't understand why we had to make this signing. And I would say also, why does he have to start every single game? I think now you have to start him every single game because he hasn't played well. So it'll look like he's being dropped, which means that the manager doesn't believe in him. So you kind of put yourself in a position now where he has to play, where I think you'd like to have the autonomy to like play him sometimes and not play him other times. If I'm Trossard and I'm watching Kai Havertz play, I'm actually probably pissed off, because in preseason, Trossard was better in that position when he played there. He was better overall in preseason, and he's just been better. And so he's not getting any minutes, but this guy is playing. So, I just kind of stand in the, it has to work, because we didn't have to make this signing. But we needed another midfielder, and we went with this. So, and we just have to hold that, Mikey says, rewatch the games, Jess. He's better than your eyes see. I actually was one of the people that said he hasn't been terrible, but I'm also one of the people that's saying don't lie and say that he's been really good when he hasn't. I'm not saying that he's like been like, the thing is like, for Arsenal, a team that's here, like, let's just call it how it is. Arsenal were expected, rightfully or wrongly, to take the next step this season and close the gap on Manchester City. So every signing that we made in this window was going to be heavily, heavily, heavily scrutinized because every single one needed to inch us closer to Manchester City. And midfield was a big conversation around that because we lost Granit Xhaka. And so we brought in Timber, perfect signing. Got Rice over the line, perfect signing. Kai Havertz at 65 million when Soboslai was available to you. Madison is available to you. There's so many other players that were available. Matthias Nunez. All these players are available to you, and we went for this guy. And so despite him looking better than maybe people feel like he looked on rewatches, he's still probably the worst signing of the window because it didn't make sense. The price is astronomical. He didn't really fit the need. He didn't get us any. He's not getting it at right now, despite having maybe better performances than maybe than people are saying. He did not get us any closer to fighting Man City. Not at this point. I think we actually would have been better off with Granit Xhaka. So it doesn't I don't see how anybody could look at this and say that it's not the worst signing on paper right now. And this is coming from agents, well, not just fans. And in regards to rewatching the game and seeing things in a different light, yeah, you can rewatch games and you see things that you didn't see before. I don't think Kai Havertz has been terrible. I just don't think he's been that good either. I think I'm not underwhelmed. I'm not, I'm whelmed by him. He's just out there for me. And it frustrates me on both sides where some people are saying that everything that we do wrong is because of Kai Havertz. And I'm also frustrated by people that are saying that he's been just so good and we just can't see it. I can see with my own two eyes that he's just been all right. And the moments haven't went his way, but some of those are because he doesn't have the confidence. And I'm more frustrated not at him because it's not him. He didn't if I'm Kai Havertz, I am definitely gagging at the opportunity to play for Arsenal Football Club. I don't deserve it. I haven't been good, but they're going to pay me 200,000 pounds per week. I'm not going to have to move country or nothing. And they're a team that's on the up. So it's not his fault that he took the opportunity. I'm looking at the club sideways did we have to do this or could we have done something different? I think we put unnecessary stress on ourselves. A team that's already kind of dealing with getting over the disappointment of not winning the Premier League, to add somebody in there, to take away somebody with immense confidence and leadership and voice in the team in Granit Xhaka that's also was playing at the peak of his powers, to replace that player with somebody at the lowest possible ebb of their career just made no sense, especially at the price tag. So I don't know why anybody's surprised by this. It really doesn't bother me at all. Nobody rates our signings anyway. Most players that we bought in the Arteta era have all been looked at as oh, they're not really that good. People thought Odegaard wasn't that good. People were, oh, why are they buying Jesus and Zinchenko? They're Manchester City flops. So I'm used to Arsenal's transfers always being looked at a certain way. So it doesn't really bother me that much. Yo-Yo says, don't forget, Jess, it was reported that the club spoke to Mount before Kai, and he wasn't even our first choice. And Mount also is somebody that's at probably the lowest ebb in his career. He sustained an injury, so he hasn't been playing. He's also on this list, by the way. He's third on the list. But at least Mason Mount had at least one or two good seasons at Chelsea. He just had kind of fallen away. Kai Havertz has never really gotten going. So, it is what it is. Kagiso says, sorry, Jess, no one says he has been good. The criticism of his performances is because he flopped at Chelsea. I swear on my life that not only have I seen them, but I've quote tweeted tweets from people, big Arsenal accounts that said that he has been playing well. He's been good to very good in the performances that he's had. So respectfully, that is untrue because I have quote tweeted them and said, you are lying. they have been saying that he's been good to very good, and it's frustrating because it's not true. He's just been all right. If Granit Xhaka was putting in the performances that Kai Havertz was putting in, we'd be frustrated with Granit. We would. Like our level of like we are trying to make it work so badly that we're being disingenuous about his performances, to the point that people are changing the meaning of an attacking midfielder. They're saying things like, oh, well, if you knew he was coming in as a midfielder, would you be so upset that he's not getting goals and assists? Yes, because an attacking midfielder, which we already knew he was coming in to play midfield, I said it from the beginning, of course we expect him to score goals and get assists. What are midfielders there for? He's not a DM. So people are doing a lot to make it seem like this signing is making sense at this point. It's not. He's been okay. And there's like a long way to go for a player that we bought for 65 million to look like a good to very good player or good to very good performances. People have said it because I've been in the conversations and I've been slandered for saying that it's disingenuous. So yeah, people have been saying it. And they're going too far on either side. They're going too far on either side. He's just been okay. He needs more time, but equally, I don't think that he should play every single game. And I worry about players like Vieira and Trossard, that Trossard is better than him and Fabio Vieira is playing better than him, that they're not getting the minutes that they probably deserve because we're trying to make this guy work. Like even yesterday, we had the conversation around people saying that we should move Odegaard because Odegaard's position would suit Kai better. How about just buy somebody that actually plays left center mid and not try to move our captain and one of our best players out of his best position to compensate for this guy? Like, I get that we want it to work, but it's up to Kai Havertz to make it work. We can't make it work. And changing the meaning of an attacking midfielder, changing what we expect from a player and telling me I'm seeing things that I'm not is not going to make me change my mind on like, he's just been all right. He's just been okay. So yeah, Clock Orange says Odegaard left center mid would suit Martinelli better, not Havertz. P Trim says just the only thing is to trust Arteta to get it out of him. I say 40 million is the max we should have paid, but I'm trusting Arteta on this. That's all we can really do. Boy says just let Havertz cook. Hope he starts cooking soon. Turn the stove on, maybe, so we can get cooking. Tamina says good riddance to Vinai, bye-bye from Arsenal Football Club. We'll get on to that in a second. Let's see. Nandish says Vieira and Fabio cannot with the second balls. Like, so one player, Fabio Vieira, cannot win the second balls like Havertz and Xhaka can. That's why Arteta likes him so much. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Let's see. Yo-Yo says it's not Arteta for me. He signed him. He's playing him. Exactly. So, again, I want it to work. Yeah, I get what you meant. I want it to work, but it's not working yet. So, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Despite him winning duels and being better off the ball than people had expected him to be, ultimately in that position, we expect that player to get goals and assists. He has been robbed of an assist or two. I will be honest about that. Like, I think Martinelli should do better for one of his chances, and Nketiah should do also better in like multiple games. It was Martinelli against Crystal Palace and Nketiah against Nottingham Forest. So he could have had assists. And like I do see the stats up here that say like, okay, yeah, he has some good key passes. He should probably have some assists. I see these things. But again, like this is Arsenal Football Club. We are way beyond trying to see through the weeds to understand if a player is good or not. When you're watching a good player or not. And right now, Kai Havertz is just all right. His confidence is shot and he needs a lot of work, and that's just where it is. I'll put it like this. There's another player. There's two other players that one costs less than Kai Havertz and one costs just the same. Soboslai costs about 60 million to play in a very similar position for Liverpool. and Madison cost 40 million for Tottenham. They both of them play in similar positions. They're in attacking midfield. So they're midfielders, but more on the attacking side. Football is simple. Like you don't there's no other way to spin it. They're attacking midfielders. Look at what they're getting from those two players and look what we're accepting as good enough for this guy. Like there's a ways to go. That's all I'm really saying. So, yeah, but Clement says, who has said Havertz has been good to very good. I'm not going to say the names. It's out there. Like I have quote tweeted it. I've seen many people after games write threads and long paragraphs saying how good and how impressed they've been with this guy. And it's just lies. It's just lies. Like we don't have to do that. You know what I mean? So let's pivot though. To Vinai leaving this summer. So again, at the beginning of the show, I'm trying to understand what this guy's job is, and I'm not sure that I really do. I'm not sure that I really understand it. So maybe somebody in the comment section can give me some insight. But CEO Vinai Venkatesham is to step down next summer. So in America, if you say next summer, you mean like next summer. But I think like this means, or like if I'm saying the summer that's coming up, I'm saying this summer. But I think next summer for like people in the UK is the same as this summer coming up, I think. Vinai, the club CEO, has confirmed that he will leave next summer after 14 years with the club. Vinai said, "It's been a tough decision, but it's time to pursue another challenge. Now it is not the time for goodbyes as I remain focused on until my last day and supporting a seamless transition." Our co-chair, Josh Kroenke, commented, the board is fully supportive of Vinai's desire to pursue his next challenge. Whilst it is a business as usual with everyone focused on the season ahead, we'd like to take this moment to thank him for his contribution and long service. Vinai will always be a part of the Arsenal family and always welcome back at the Emirates Stadium. Change and succession is something the club is well prepared for. The board remains committed to our strategy and will address leadership changes as we continue to drive the club forward. So not really much there, but he's leaving and to search for different opportunities, whatever that means. So Arsenal will need a new CEO. What I've noticed about Arsenal lately is that, like, especially under like this new regime, is that we like to hire from within. And so I wonder if somebody will just be moved into that position that we already kind of already have. And then there's Juliet. What is her name? Juliet. I forget what her name is. Juliet. She's already like kind of involved. Maybe she just gets the position. But this says the AST, or the Arsenal Supporter Trust, is sad to hear that Arsenal chief executive Vinai Venkatesham will leave the club. He was genuinely committed to fan engagement and improved relations considerably when taking over. He was always available and would be direct and honest in discussion. And one of the things about Vinai that I do know that he did was he kind of really tried to build back the trust with the fans, which was really, really bad at the time. If you guys remember, like when Arteta first came in, when everything was going on with like the cuts, when people were getting fired and they got rid of Gunnar Source and stuff like that. I remember Vinai being like very visible and doing a lot of the trying to rebuild those relationships. And from what the Arsenal Supporter Trust is saying is that he did a good job. They also said Vinai also rebuilt a younger, more diverse and dynamic executive team at Arsenal that is making a difference. We wish him in his future in his future endeavors. And so that's kind of like the only thing I really know of that he was really, really responsible for. I'm not, because I just remember him doing a lot of that stuff. And then I remember like before he was like responsible for the commercial stuff. And so we'll see like what direction they go in. I've seen some like weird things about Ivan Gazidis. I think those are made up. I think people are just trolling. But I'll find her name. Her name is like Juliet something. Maybe she just gets the job because Arsenal basically right now hire from within. Like even though like Steve Round left, you see that we didn't hire anybody. And I figure that they just reshuffled the deck of the people that are in there and they didn't bring anybody else in, rightly or wrong. Her name is Juliet Slot, and she's been more involved with the commercial and revenue stuff for the club recently. So we'll see. It's like I don't really have a big opinion on Vinai because I'm not sure what his remit truly was. It's hard to really know, So I don't know if it's a good thing that he's going or a bad thing, but I imagine Arsenal will hire from within because that's what we've been doing recently. And we tend not to go like we have our people and people just get either they go up or they move jobs or whatever. And so we'll see what's going on with him. We'll see what's going on with him. Sweta says Vinai. Okay. Mickey says, what I've noticed is that we are not afraid to refresh in pursuit of excellence. Kagiso says his job is similar to his predecessor is to maximize Arsenal's brand by ensuring that Arsenal can compete with the likes of United in terms of earning commercial income. Arsenal has a lot of brand equity. Yeah. I mean, I think Juliet Slot is the one that they've been saying like she's been doing a lot of the commercial stuff and trying to get us on at a different level. I think we have not ever really maximized our brand potential. So hopefully whoever comes in is willing to can actually make that even better. But I think, in terms of commercially, I think Arsenal's brand has gotten a little bit like more visible, and we definitely have like a niche. Like Arsenal are definitely trying to be like London's club, the culture club, like they're really leaning into those things. So, and doing things in the community and in areas that really I think benefit and appreciate that Arsenal are visible and trying to help them out. And so I think all of that is intertwined together, which is important. So yeah, Hugo says Vinai is the head of social media. So I guess some people would consider him maybe the PR expert. I don't know. Everybody thinks everything we do is PR, which I'm not sure that it necessarily is. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that and who gets hired. But at the moment, he's just gone, and that's just in the summer. So we'll have to see how that all comes to fruition with a new person, if we hire from within or hire from outside. Last but not least, Arsenal women are set for a deadline day deal for Kyra Cooney-Cross. I already told you guys that like Arsenal women did go out of the Champions League. They didn't even get to the group stages, which is very, very damaging for the club and a very big disappointment. But Arsenal have been looking for an additional midfielder, and this scoop is coming from Tim Stillman. You guys know him from Arsenal Vision and from Arsblog. But Cooney-Cross is a defensive midfielder, and it will end the Gunners' long wait for another natural number 6 to compete and rotate with Leah Walty. Leah Walty has kind of been our only DM for a long period of time. And if you want like a comparison of who Leah Walty is more similar to, she is more Jorginho than Rice. Cooney-Cross is a little bit more of a Rice. Like she's more, I think, physical and has more of the ability to, stop attacks and things like that. Decent on the ball. And we love Australians in this team. It's like everybody is either they're either like Swedish or Australian. We definitely have a vibe to us, right? And Manchester United and Chelsea both had interest in the player, but with Hammarby, which is where she came from, the price was £150,000, and the clubs were put off by that price. Arsenal decided not to take the risk by waiting in January, and it put in a bid for her, and so she should be coming into the club. Also, we've also brought in Alessia Russo from Manchester United, Chloe Lacoste. I think she came from Benfica. Amanda Ilstad, I said that earlier. She came from PSG, and Laia Codina from Barcelona, also Spain international, who won the World Cup in the Summer World Cup this time around. And so we've done good recruitment. It is very, very, very devastating that we're not in the Champions League, but we've recruited well, and we've definitely needed a player like Cooney Cross. So hopefully it all works out. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. If you guys are just getting here, make sure you guys just roll it back. I can see I'm also like weirdly lagging, so this is probably a good time to get out anyway. But you guys can roll it back. We talked about Saka's injury. We talked about Rice. We talked about Kai Havertz. We talked about everything. There's 220 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I will be back tomorrow with more content. Remember, memberships are changing on Monday. Audio will be available on Monday. And our guest for Monday's podcast is going to be That's Watson. So a lot of good content coming your way. And I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.